This is the C300 Mark II. It's a pretty easy camera to use, pretty practical. As you can see, it's pretty light. It has its unit up here for visualizing what you're filming, but you can take it off pretty easy. Right here. It's pretty good for documentaries and fiction. And I like its lightness because you can take it anywhere. You can pretty much transform this into a DSLR. It's as easy to use as a DSLR, as a matter of fact. It has many more features than a regular DSLR. But if you know how to use like a 5D or something like that, and a Canon DSLR, you can use this camera pretty easily. If you take this display off, you can take this basically into the subway. You can also take this upper handle off, and you can take it into the subway underneath your coat, and you can take your actors and do something real easy with it. It can be pretty small with a 15mm lens, which is quite unstable, and I don't recommend this for handheld shots. But even with a zoom, it's not that big. So this is basically the whole camera, the body of the camera with the upper handle and the grip. I would recommend to always use the grip, but you could even use it without the grip, and you can start shooting with this button here, down here. The grip has a shooting button as well, start stop right here, and there's another start stop on the display. If you use this camera without the display, it'll start recording sound on the video by default. On the two first channels of your audio channels, this camera always records 4 audio channels. However, if you use the display for recording sound with the camera, which no one does that, except for very few people. I know most people use professional microphones for recording sound at the same time. But if by any chance you want to use the internal recording sound, which I think is the best internal recording sound that I've ever had in a camera, well, this camera is not mine, but anyway, it's very good internal sound. It really does. It has saved my day 1 or 2 times in documentary recording. So if you plug it in, you'll have the audio on channel 3 and 4. If you don't plug this upper thing in, if you just take off this cable, the video cable, it has an audio cable as well, exactly like this one. You'll get audio down here on channel 1 and 2. So as soon as you start playing your files, you will hear sound. Otherwise, you'll just have to switch to channel 3 and 4. So here's the display, very useful. It's bigger than a 5D. I'm going to take off the lid. Here's the display. And that's it. With your start stop buttons, you're pretty much set. Everything else is right here. The ISO is right here on the side, and you can of course change the buttons, which I never do. Here's the ISO, here's the shutter, frame rate. This camera goes up to 120 frames per second, and it will crop your image to HD if I'm not mistaken. This Mark II C300 does 4K, 2K, Full HD, and you can go up to 444 for color space. It's 10-bit, 12-bit if you prefer. The internal sound is pretty good as well. It's quite good. I think it's 24-bit. And here's your very easy to operate display. Here's you can also play video on the media mode. You put down here in media, and you can play your videos. And when you're recording, you got the menu right here. And it's got all the features there, all the regular things. You can choose 4K, you can choose slow motion, etc. Pretty much all the features of a DSLR. You can even take stills with this camera, which I basically never do. But because it's more of a cine camera, it's the cine version of Canon. It's got the little C there on the red square, so you can use this for making films. It's really good for that. So this is basically it. If you know how to use a DSLR, you can use this camera. You just have to go into the menu and check out the different features from a DSLR. And the manual is right there online. The manuals, also it comes of course with manuals, any camera, but the online manual is very useful. Wherever you are, you can consult, and whatever you need to learn how to do, you can learn it right there. Here's your audio control for your microphones. And you can put in this little mount shotgun microphone if you prefer. The connectivity for microphones is pretty good. You have right here an input for XLR microphones. Line 1, 2, input 1 and input 2, right there. So you can hook the camera with a microphone if you want. That's pretty good for documentary, of course, or feature filmmaking, short filmmaking, etc. There, I forgot to fasten this correctly. There we go. Just need to tighten it up nicely. The way this thing moves, the display is pretty good as well. You can be recording like this, and your director can be looking at the image from the side, or yourself if you're directing yourself. And you can do this. And it has a little bit of mobility, just about in every sense, like certain DSLR cameras do, except for the 5D, which has a fixed display. So the fact that this is not a fixed display is a pretty nice thing. So this is basically it. There's lots of things to learn how to do with this camera, about the controls, but it's really a very simple camera to use. Lots of features, but very simple to use. And it's nice and light. Back here you have your cards. Okay, this thing is telling me that I need a new battery, so I soon will change the battery pack. And this camera uses CFast cards, for memory cards, and that's what this camera takes for recording. And if I'm not mistaken, you can also attach an external device, which I do not do. And there's lots of connections right here, HDMI, etc. And here's the second slot for another CFast card. And I use 128 gigabyte cards, so you can have more than 200 gigabytes in here for internal recording. And here is the battery. Here's the battery, so that's it. This is a built-in full audio and video recording device, which I strongly recommend, and I really like the Canon image quality. So here you go, C300 Mark II. Strongly recommended, very light camera, easy to use.